Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Jesus Talks. I am your host, Ari. And for today's episode, we have another special guest with us today. This week, we have Roots of Faith, aka Roots of Orthodoxy. We have Jonathan on here today. A lot of you guys might know him from Voice of Reason as well. So we're going to be deep diving into a lot of his stuff and a lot of his work and what he does. So, Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, guys. So,
Yeah,
I
you
do
got
want
me nervous because you've been hyping up the podcast so much that I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint. But let's see how it
I
goes.
don't think that's a possibility. Don't worry, I'll make you look cool if you aren't already.
Right on.
So for today's episode, guys, we're not going to deep dive too much into the religious aspect of things. I actually want to get down to the root of who is Jonathan. What exactly does it do online? Because a lot of you guys know that he produces Voice of Reason, and Alex has also stated that he is like the brains behind Voice of Reason, and it not would have happened if it wasn't for him. But as you guys know, he also has his two other channels, so we're going to be talking about that as well. So, Jonathan, so to start off, are you Catholic or are you Orthodox?
Oh my gosh, you're going to put me on the spot with the first question. Am I Catholic or Orthodox? Right now, I'm Catholic and I attend the Eastern Catholic Church. I'm not canonically Eastern Catholic, just like Alex. We're both Roman Rite, but I fell in love with the Eastern Rite of the Catholic Church, the Eastern tradition specifically, because I grew up Catholic. I grew up Roman Rite Catholic and I was a cradle Catholic. I didn't really care about the faith. I, like many other Mexicans, Latinos, we grew up in the faith. We don't really care about it. It's just kind of like a cultural thing. You just go to church like just to show up, just to feel good that you're there, or you'll go because of the quinceañeras or the weddings or whatever, and you're not really too much into the faith. You don't really know what's going on. And that was me growing up. And there was many times, Alex has always been super deep into the faith. He's always had a relationship with God and he's always tried to get me closer to God ever since, he's always been very expressive about the faith. Since we were kids, he's always tried to get me closer to God. Every time I would stay over at his house, I knew that the sacrifice that I would have to do is I would have to go to church the next day with him. I was like, oh, I want to hang out with him, but I don't want to go to church the next day. But I knew that that's what I needed to do if I wanted to hang out with Alex. So he always tried to keep me close to God. He always had a relationship with God. But somewhere along the way, I just stopped caring about God and I started going into like these other things, like the New Age world. I started to get really into like Stoic philosophy. I was a big fan of like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Socrates, Plato. I started getting into like the Greek philosophy stuff. I thought that was the pinnacle of the human intellect. I thought that is as far as you can go. And so that's what I want to get into. And everything having to do with Christianity just kind of seemed wishy-washy. I didn't know the difference between Catholic and Protestant. And so I would kind of conflate the two very often. And when I would see these people that are like, hey, do you know about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? I'd be like, oh, that's so corny. Like that, I don't like that. I don't like these guys that are standing on top of the Starbucks tables and just yelling at everyone to repent. I'm like, that's not me. And I'm a very reserved and introverted person. So I was like, I can never be Christian because if being Christian means that I have to stand on top of tables and yell at people or yell at people on the streets, then that can never be me because I'm never going to do that. But fast forward, probably when I was maybe 25 or 26 years old, that's when Alex really started putting me on the spot about my faith. And he would ask me about, do you believe in God? Do you believe in, a higher power? What are your beliefs? And so I started sharing with him that I believed in a universal God, that I did believe in a creator. I believed in a higher power. As one of the books that I would read, it's called Think and Grow Rich. He would refer to God as the infinite intelligence. So it was just this incorporeal, universal power that we could tap into. It was the source of life that we could tap into, and it wasn't necessarily personal. In fact, in the book, it says, if you use it for good, it'll help you. If you use it for bad, it'll help you. So it's very centered on the idea of like the law of attraction. If you magnetize your thoughts to this vibration of wealth and positivity and good things happening to you, that's exactly what the universe will give you. It's some type of like reciprocation. And if your life is steeped in like poverty and hate and anger, then that's what the universe will show you. And so I didn't believe in a personal God that knew me, but I believed in this source that we could tap into. And Alex really started to press me on that. And he said, Do you believe in a personal God or impersonal God? Eventually, he convinced me that it makes sense to believe in a personal God, a God that knows me, a God that knows who I am. And I was like, yeah, I believe in a personal God. And then from there, we started with that. And then he said, well, what if this personal God left something for mankind, left a way that we can know him? And what if that thing that he left behind, what if it reveals more about who he is and how we are supposed to relate to that God? Would you think that's important? And he slowly started to like put these ideas into my head. And I kind of brushed it off for a while. And then one day he was feeling very aggressive. Alex was just on in his apologist mode and he was feeling very aggressive and he put me on the spot, him and my other best friend. And they got me so mad. I was like, you know what? I'm going to read the gospel and I'm going to show you guys that you guys don't know what you're talking about. You're completely misunderstanding what's written in the gospels. I'm going to prove you guys wrong. So I purchased the Word on Fire Gospels volume. I actually have the one of the volumes right here so you guys can see. This one is the Pentateuch. This is the first 5 books of Moses. Very beautiful volumes that Word on Fire puts together. But I had gotten the Gospels volume. And so I started reading through it and I started taking photos of every time that I saw that Jesus was contradicting the claim that he was divine. So every time I would see something that affirmed his humanity, I would take a picture of it and I would send it to Alex and my other friend in a group chat. And they're so good at what they do at evangelizing. And they were very patient with me. They didn't like scold me. They didn't tell me I was stupid. They would get on phone calls with me. They were very patient. And they just kind of let me figure it out for myself. They kind of like, they would answer my questions, but they kind of left me alone to figure it out for myself. And slowly over time, I started reading more, and I was like, "Wait a minute, this is really interesting. This is a little bit more than just the that he's some type of prophet. There's some claims that he's making here that if he wasn't who he's saying he was, he would be some type of like narcissistic sociopath because of the way he speaks with authority and the way that he's able to draw people to his message." I said, "There's something deeper here that's happening," and it slowly started to open my mind to Christianity. And so I approached Alex and I said, "Hey, man, I've been always wanted to get you on camera. You're an actor, you're very talented. I want to put you on camera." I've been telling him for years that I wanted to put him on social media, but I found a way to incorporate who he is as an apologist, as a catechist, and do that for social media. So I approached him and I was like, "Hey, man, we could really do something here. You really know your stuff. Let's put you on camera and let me handle it. Like, just sit down on the couch. Let me ask you some questions. Let me tell you the things that you should talk about, and I'll put it up on social media. You don't have to do anything. I'll take care of the rest." And so he finally agreed, and we had our first session. I had him talk about so many different topics. We put together a lot of TikToks, and that's the platform that we started on. So I already knew how to grow social media channels because I've been doing it for 6 years. I've been making content since 2019 is when I started taking it very seriously. So I've already had the experience of building personal brands, working with celebrities, working with YouTubers, working with different influencers. I already had that background. So I knew exactly what we needed to do. And so I put together the content and I said, "Look, I guarantee you this first video is going to go viral." We put it up. Sure enough, it went viral. Second video goes viral. Third video goes viral. Fourth video. And then within a couple months, we're already at like over 100,000 followers. And I was like, dude, like, let's keep going. Let's go to YouTube. Let's go to Instagram. And that's pretty much how we started. But even as we were doing content, I still wasn't fully convicted as a Christian. In fact, I was looking into Islam. Islam was very attractive to me at the time. I was very enamored by the faith. I really loved and admired the discipline and the commitment to God that you see in that religion. I liked the tradition, the ascetical practices. I was really inspired by guys like Sneeko and Andrew Tate. I would watch their content and I saw that they had converted to Islam. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. I want to do that too. Like, Islam is a true religion. And now Alex was fighting me on that. And we had to we would make videos about Islam and the Quran and stuff like that. So anyway, the more we did content for Christianity, the more it softened me up. But I still didn't really care too much until he took me to his church, which was the Byzantine Catholic Church. It's called Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And this is the Byzantine Catholic parish here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I had been putting that off for a long time because my other friend told me, he's like, "Hey, bro, if you go, just a heads up, that liturgy is about 2 hours long." And I was like in my mind, I already hate church. So I was like, why would I go there for 2 hours? Like 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. Like, I would not want to do that. And one day I was with Alex. I think we were hanging out and we were together and he took me there and I was like, dang it. All right. So we went and sure enough, like I ended up falling in love with it. I saw that the experience was very different than what I had been exposed to. The smells, the chant, the experience, the visuals, the iconography, the focus on God, the reverence. It was so new to me. It was very exotic and very foreign, but it appealed to me because I was like, this is what I was searching for in Islam. Islam has all of these characteristics minus the iconography because they're iconoclasts. And I said, this is what I was looking for. And I know that it's true because it's Christianity. And this is a lot more ancient than what I was used to. This reminds me so much of, I mean, just the tradition, the practices, so much of it really appealed to me. And so I fell in love with the Eastern Catholic faith, the Eastern tradition, specifically the Eastern spirituality, and we started interviewing the Eastern priests. And it was from there we got really into the Eastern faith. And we started a page called Our Lady of Perpetual Help New Mexico for YouTube. And I started going viral, putting those priests on camera and putting them on YouTube. And guys, when I say viral, because I got a lot of flack for this on my video where I talk about who I am and I'm a Catholic exploring Orthodoxy. When I say viral, I'm not talking about it in a I'm speaking of it in a as an observation. I'm not talking about it like my goal is to go viral. Like I want to do all this stuff so I can go viral. That's not the intention at all. That's my observation and that's my expertise on, my background as a social media person.
So you didn't. So if I'm understanding correctly, you didn't. When you said that you were Catholic, were you Roman Catholic or were you practicing a certain rite before you, even though you didn't take Catholicism that seriously?
Yeah, I was Roman Catholic just like any Mexican, Mexican American. So
So like, what do you say would be like? What do you think was your perception of God before, and then your perception of Him now? Because obviously, it sounds like you went through a whole process of like having to find out like what is it, where am I going at specifically, even exploring other religions as well.
my perception of God before was, like I said earlier, that this idea of a supreme universal power that wasn't necessarily personal. But then Alex got me to understand that this God is personal and he knows who you are. And then from there, um, it took me a while to figure out that Christ was God. It took me a very long time I wrestled with that. I didn't know that. 26 years into my Catholic formation, I did not know that Jesus Christ was God. I did not know that that was what we were doing when we went to Mass, that that's what was taking place, that we were worshiping the God man Christ. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about Christ. So 26 years as a Catholic, going to church every single Sunday as a cultural Catholic, not somebody who took the faith seriously. I would just go. I didn't know what was going on. I never knew that Christ was God. So I kind of opened my mind about that, about Christ being God. So I got to that part, and then Alex told me, "Hey, actually, our God is a triune God. God is Trinity." And then that was the point where I was like, "Bro, I'm just gonna become Muslim." What did you just tell me? Now I have to believe that this God is actually three. I was like, "This does not make sense." Like, I'm gonna become Muslim. I believe in the one God. I believe in a supreme power. And now you're asking me to believe in the Holy Spirit too. I mean, like, that's really weird. I said, I could do with the Son, the Father and the Son. Okay, that kind of makes sense to me in some way. But now you're telling me to believe in this third person. I'm like, that does not make sense. But slowly I started to get open to that idea as well. And it was actually at this time that I actually started exploring the Orthodox Church. So I was still going to church as an Eastern Catholic when I made that discovery that we have to believe in the Holy Trinity. I'm a very slow learner, so I'm stupid. So like anybody watching and be like, you were going to church 26 years and you didn't know what the hell was going on? Yeah, that's me. I'm an idiot. But anyway, I had this issue with the Holy Trinity. I'm like, this is a crazy idea. It's a very radical idea. And that's when I started checking out the Orthodox Church. And just coincidentally, or I guess you can say by God's providence, the first church that I actually step into, the first Orthodox church that I step into is called Holy Trinity. And it was through Holy Trinity Orthodox Church that I started to really fall in love with the idea of the Holy Trinity. And so that started getting me into Orthodoxy. But before I get into that story, I was going to church, I was going to the Eastern Catholic Church. And, being at the Eastern Catholic Church, you hear the term Orthodox a lot because they share that tradition, that Eastern spirituality, and you hear the term Orthodox a lot. And then I started to wonder, I'm like, well, what's Orthodox? Like, why don't we go over there? Why don't we go check out the church here in town that's Orthodox? And so I got curious and I messaged the priest in Santa Fe, New Mexico, which is an hour north from where I live in Albuquerque. And I said, hey, I'd love to check out your church. I'd love to meet you guys and know more about you guys. And he responded back and he said, hey, come check out the church. And then I think it was the following weekend, I went to Holy Trinity. And Alex was like, kind of like telling me, he's like, hey man, that doesn't count for your like Sunday obligation. Like you still got to go to Catholic church. And at the time I was like very rebellious and I didn't care. And I was like, well, I mean, God's over here too. It doesn't really matter. And so I went to go check out the Orthodox church and my mind was blown. My mind was, as soon as I stepped in those doors and I saw the beauty and the reverence, it was like when I stepped into the Eastern Catholic Church, amplified, intensified. It felt like I was in the most pure form of what we were doing at the Eastern Catholic Church. That was just my observation. When I was there, just the way that the hymnography was calling out to me, the incense. I'm not a very emotional person, but at that moment, I wanted to cry. Like when I stepped through those doors and I was like, wow. And I had been told that when I go to the Orthodox Church, everyone's going to be mean to me. They said, as soon as they find out you're Catholic, they're going to kick you out. Those people are mean and they're very aggressive. So they told me, they said, as soon as they find out you're Catholic, you're going to get kicked out. Well, as soon as I walk in the doors, within the first few moments, a very nice older woman, she comes up to me and she introduces herself and she says, this is your first time here? And I said, yes. The first thing she does is she hands me a paper icon and she said, this is for you. And then she also hands me a CD that had the sermons from the founding pastor of that church on the CD. And she handed that to me as well. And she said, welcome. And she kind of, gave me the little tour. And she told me, this is what we're doing. You can stand right here and you can worship with us. And I was like, wow. Like, so right away, the experience was very different than what I was told. I was like, this feels right. It feels right. I didn't know anything about the faith and I still don't, but it just felt right that I was there and getting to experience and be drawn into the liturgy. And that's how I started going on to this journey. And I said, hey, I have this idea that I want to start learning more about Orthodox Christians. And I know that they're very underrepresented and there's not much about them online. So I started asking the priests if I could interview them and put them on camera and put it out there. And at the same time, I get to build these relationships with these priests and I get to learn more specifically from them from a one-on-one. And I thought it was a great idea. So I just started asking these priests and they were open to it for some reason. Usually they're very cautious about things like this. And the first priest that I asked, he received a blessing from his bishop to do it. And he sat down with me. And the first video that we did, I titled it something like The Original Christians That You've Never Heard of. Because at that time, Orthodoxy was a very foreign term. Like not a lot of people knew about it. Now everybody knows about Orthodoxy. But back then, I had never seen that online. I had never seen it online. I didn't see Catholics talking about it. At least the ones that I was watching, I didn't really see too much about it. I didn't see it on TikTok, that's for sure. And so that's why I titled it that, The Original Christians You've Never Heard of. And that video did, some crazy numbers. And it was just, it just opened the doors to start working and talking to other priests and getting to learn from them and putting them out on camera. And even though I wasn't sure if this was the fullness of the faith, because people were telling me these are schismatics, these are people that broke away from the true church. Even though I wasn't entirely sure if that was true or not, I knew that something there was true. And I knew that something there was holy. So I said, there's something true here and there's something holy that's here. So I don't see the detriment of putting this out there for other people to know and to explore for themselves. And in fact, I've been told that these priests have valid sacraments, valid holy orders, valid apostolic succession. So they're priests. They have a true Eucharist. They have the true sacraments. People are being baptized into the mystical body of Christ in some form or fashion. So I feel no guilt about putting that out there. And if somebody becomes Orthodox because they stumbled upon an Orthodox video that I had put out, I praise God for that. It wasn't something that I was like feeling guilty over because at the time I was still kind of learning, and I'm still learning to this day, but at the time I didn't know much, and I just knew that much. I knew that there was something there. So that's pretty much how I got started. You know, that I started Roots of Orthodoxy. I started Voice of Reason first with Alex. We started in 2023 in March.
How did you think of the name for Voice of Reason?
That was all him. That was him.
Really?
Yeah, he
Okay.
told me he's like I have a name. I want it to be called Voice of Reason. And I was already so like impatient with him because it took us so long to get started that I was just like, yeah, yeah, whatever. Just put what just call yourself whatever. Like let's just make this content. And like that name ends up being like a really appropriate name for him. So it works out.
And so diving deeper into that aspect, um, have you ever thought about what would happen with Voice of Reason? Because I know you're inquiring Orthodoxy, like you're visiting Catholic, but you're inquiring Orthodoxy. Are you like have you ever thought about what happened to the channel if like you do turn Orthodox? Because I know I asked Alex that same question, and he said that if you decided to go Orthodox, like if you still wanted to continue the channel, he would still be down to do it. But he's like, "But if Jonathan said I'm done, I quit," like, he's like, "I'm not gonna keep doing Voice of Reason." So, yeah, so I guess I'm asking you the same question. What would happen with Voice of Reason if you do turn Orthodox?
First, I was very naive and I thought that I could do both. And I was like, there's not an issue if I do both. And then I started learning more. And then I was like, oh, there's a big issue if I do both. There's a really big issue if I become Orthodox and I keep helping Alex to share the Catholic faith, the Roman Catholic faith. I started noticing that. At first, I didn't think there was going to be a problem. Then, the more I dive deeper into the faith, and it's kind of that way even for the Catholic position as well. Because if it is harmful to souls to step away from being in communion with the chair of Peter, with the see of Peter, the Roman pontiff, if it can put somebody's soul at stake to do that, from the Catholic perspective, I'm like, I'm contributing to that. If I was a fully convicted Catholic, I'd be like, there's something, maybe I should stop doing this. Like, there's, and from an Orthodox perspective, it's even more hardcore because it's like the Roman Catholic Church fell into error. It went into heresy. It fell into schism. They departed from the one true faith, from the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. So I have a moral responsibility not to lead people astray and lead people into where their soul is now in danger. So I've kind of bit the bullet, and where I'm at currently, I'm kind of doing both. So I'm kind of like, in this weird phase. But I do realize that it is a problem if I become Orthodox and I continue to work with Alex, especially because a lot of his content is centered on debating Orthodox or debating these Orthodox beliefs. I think what happened was because I built Roots of Orthodoxy, a lot of attention started coming into our space about orthodoxy, that a lot of our patrons and members and audience, they started asking questions to Alex like, hey, is this true? A lot. And when I first started Roots of Orthodoxy, people would send Alex, they didn't know I was behind Roots of Orthodoxy, they would send Alex my videos and say, hey, can you respond to this? Like, can you debunk this? And I would tell Alex, I was like, don't do it. I said, no, I was like, don't do it. Don't do it. I had him do, but eventually I didn't hide the fact that I was doing both. And in fact, one of my first videos, if anybody doubts me, they can go to my Instagram. They can scroll all the way to the bottom. One of my first videos is a collaboration between Alex and myself, and he was responding positively to one of the priests that I had worked with. So that there was never any like what I would later get accused of, like trying to hide and all this nonsense that people were saying about me.
Yeah, I saw that, and I know you had posted, like, a video, like, saying, like, "Hey, guys, like, this is me," and then everybody started coming at you, and they're like, "Oh god," they're like, he's a like, he's a Catholic working on an Orthodox page," like, people thought that was really, like, crazy, and I even know some people even went after Alex and, like, even asked him, like, "Did you know that your friend was doing this?"
That's
I'm
funny.
like in my head, I was thinking, I was like, "Dude," I'm like, "The man probably supports Jonathan and what he's doing." but I
Yeah.
can see where people would have a problem with that, you
And I
know?
don't blame anybody if they had some type of feeling about it because I get it. I get it. Like if I get the optics of it, I get that it looks like I was being disingenuous or but here's the kicker and here's the part where it did a lot of damage as far as my image is concerned is because people made the assumption that this was some type of I don't know, I got accused of being like a CIA agent and all this stuff that my tactic was that I was gonna build this page up, excuse me, and subvert the church, get all these people into orthodoxy, only to then switch up on them and tell them, "Ha, got you. This is Catholic, and the true church is the Catholic Church, and you all need to become Catholic," or some idea like that. And it was interesting, just some of the blowback that I got, but I actually got a lot of support. You can go to my video. I titled it "Roots of Orthodoxy Exposed," and I called it that because during that week, people were going crazy on me and they were trying to expose me on Instagram. And so I called it "Roots of Orthodoxy Exposed" to kind of play on that, just kind of piggyback off of that, and respond to the whole thing. And if you read the comments, like 90% of people are supportive. In fact, I got so many messages, so many Orthodox Christians that reached out to me and they said, "Brother, I don't even care that you're Catholic. Please just keep doing the content. We love the content." They even told me, they're like, "Stay Catholic. We don't care. Just keep putting out the amazing content. We love it. You're speaking up for us. Like we love that." So it was a lot of that. And you can read the comments and I got a lot of it behind the scenes and all the priests that I work with they actually a lot of them actually stood up for me publicly. So I really appreciated to see that. I was like, wow, that's incredible. They didn't have to stick their necks out for me, and they did. So I was very humbled by that. And as long as the priests, I have their approval in some way, I was happy with that. And every time that I go to the Orthodox Church, the amount of people that come up to me and tell me that they became baptized or they became Orthodox or whatever the case may be because they saw a video or something like that. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. Glory to God. Or they tell me that they were a lapsed Christian or a lapsed Catholic or Protestant or atheist or some even Muslim that tell me that they came out of that because they were inspired by the testimony and the witness of the priest that I had presented on Roots of Orthodoxy. And it's nothing that I did or said. So like I don't want people to think that I'm trying to take credit. It's nothing that I said that was special that inspired people. It's strictly the priests that I had posted on Roots of Orthodoxy. They're very inspirational. They're very incredible. They're very articulate. They're very loving. They're very humble. They're deep servants of the Lord. So that's going to inspire anybody who takes a look at that. So I make it very clear that it's not something that I did. I'm not special. Like I didn't post something about myself or I said something crazy that people loved. It wasn't that. It was strictly the priests that I was showcasing, and now the Orthodox Christians, the everyday Orthodox Christians that I also promote on the page.
And I guess I'm sensing that, like, there's a lot more hate in the aspect of Catholicism, or at least in some a lot of Catholics, I feel like they bash you more than the Orthodox do,
I don't
from what I
know.
see online. Or would you say, I mean, I guess you don't have to answer that question, but, like, my thing is, from the way that I'm saying it, I see that more Catholics are after you than Orthodox people. Like, I don't know what it is, but I think they seem more welcoming to you, I guess, in that aspect. Maybe it's 'cause of the work that you're doing on the channel, or how do you see it?
I actually don't feel like I get a lot of backlash from Catholics, or maybe I do, and it's like behind the scenes. Maybe it's like what other people are saying, but I haven't seen that. I haven't paid attention to that if that is happening. And no one's ever told me anything in person. Like if someone has a problem with it, they can tell me when they see me at the church, but I haven't seen anything. In fact, even when I go to the Catholic church, people are like, "Oh, dude, I love that new video you just posted on Roots of Orthodoxy." I'm like, "That's awesome. Like you're watching the page." Even though they're Catholic and they know that they're going to stay Catholic, they just admire certain aspects of their faith and the content that's being put out. So I haven't really had backlash from Catholics, not any that I've seen.
And then how does your family feel about you doing your channels, being online so much? Do you feel like it's hard to balance your family life and your work life, or do you
Definitely.
feel like you found a balance yet, or are still trying to find a balance?
No, no balance, especially because I still have my business that I'm running. my marketing and my content creation. That's my main bread and butter. And then I do Voice of Reason and Roots of Orthodoxy and Roots of Faith on the side. So I still have my business that I'm slowly trying to probably find a way to stop doing less and start focusing more on the content. So I'm running so many things and it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost of sacrificing my family for it. So I know that that's a problem. And for a long time, it came at a cost of sacrificing my spiritual life too. Like there was a time I wasn't even going to church anymore, but I was putting out content about going to church. So I was like very hypocritical. So now I'm getting to a point where I've gotten my family up a lot more. That percentage has gone up a lot more. And my spiritual life has gone up a lot more. So I'm very pleased that that has taken priority, more priority than it has in the past. And I'm slowly starting to move the work stuff and put it in its proper bucket and not be as focused as much on that. But it's hard because I'm doing a lot of traveling. I do a lot of traveling. I travel out of state like twice, at least twice a month for the most part, once or twice a month. So I find it challenging, but what I'm trying to do now, it's going to be a little bit more costly, but I'm trying to incorporate my family a little bit. Like this right after this interview, tomorrow I'll be going to Arizona. I'm going to be out there for a while, and I'm actually going to bring my family with me. They understand that it's a work trip, but we're also going to try and fit in a little bit of downtime, little vacation time here and there. So we'll see. I don't have that perfect yet. I'm slowly working on that.
And but I'm assuming they do support in everything that you're doing, right? Everything that you're doing. Obviously, maybe it's not what they probably expected, because obviously, like, work can be a lot sometimes, and I know that with content creation, it's hard to balance everything all at once and having to have time for everything, and especially with, you having your own family and everything, like, it's not just you, like, there's other people you
Right.
gotta take care of. Like, how do you kinda
Yeah, for the most part, they're supportive. For the most part, they're supportive. My wife, she's the one that really holds it down for me. She's the one that has to deal with the two little kids while I'm working. So I'm very grateful for her. If without her, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So major shout out to her because without her, I wouldn't be doing this. She's the one that really lets all of this happen because if she wasn't there, then I wouldn't be able to do this. So having her as my support is what makes all of this possible.
Okay, and then so how many hours do you feel like you spent filming for your channels, specifically for all 3 of your channels that you have?
Not a
Voice of
lot,
Reason,
actually.
Roots of Faith, and Roots of what really?
Yeah, not a lot. Not a lot. Very minimal. We do very minimal filming. At this moment, there are times where we go super hard, but there are times where we space it out a little bit because we're so busy. Like Alex is traveling too. And a lot of times we don't travel together. Like I'm doing my trip to Arizona. I'm going to be in Arizona for 5, 6 days. He goes out of town. He gets flown out to like speaking engagements and stuff like that. And so we're kind of living two lives. Well, we do. We live two separate lives, so we don't have a lot of time to actually meet up with each other. So very minimal filming, but I'm actually surprised that we were actually still able to be active with how little content we produce. And even on Roots of Orthodoxy, like I don't produce a lot of content for it because there's not a lot of Orthodox priests near me. But just whenever I happen to go out of town, I make sure I reach out to a few Orthodox, or sometimes they'll reach out to me and they want to set something up. So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So it's just kind of like whenever it pops up, I make it happen, but not a lot of time dedicated. Like even with Roots of Faith, some of the content that's being put out now was filmed months ago. What I do is I try to like earlier this year, I went to California for a week and I booked like shoot, I don't know how many podcasts in one week. I got like 15 videos out of it. And so I'm slowly just putting them out, you know. So that's kind of how I work.
And then what's your favorite video that you put out on okay, what's your favorite video that you put out on Voice of Reason, Roots of Faith, and Roots of Orthodoxy? If you had to choose one out of for each and every single channel. It could be like a video that you did by yourself or video that which I know you normally don't do, or just a favorite interview.
It's a really good question. And it's a hard question. Voice of Reason. Let's see, the favorite video that we've ever done. Hmm. I know I told him recently, I said that was my favorite video that we've done. I'm just trying to remember what it was. Maybe I really enjoyed when I had him sit down with Father Lazarus, the Coptic Orthodox priest in California. I really loved that interview. That one sticks out to me on the Voice of Reason channel. But there's so many other videos that just have good memories attached to it, like the video where we approach the Black Hebrew Israelites. That video is so funny. That video is so funny, and he starts yelling at them. Like I like that video, but the video itself, there's not much that gets accomplished in the video because when you're engaging with those guys, they don't want a dialogue. They're not looking for a dialogue. They're looking to scream at people. They have speakers. They have, all this loud microphones. They have all these guys with them with their Bibles open, and all they're doing is just reciting the same verses over and over again and saying the same things over and over. So they're not looking to dialogue. So I know a lot of people got frustrated with that video because they were like, "You didn't say anything, Alex." Like, but it's because he couldn't. He couldn't talk. They didn't let him speak. And he only got the last 5 minutes once they were closing up. He got those last 5 minutes to talk with them, and that's when he started screaming at them too.
That
And
was
it's just
so
like this funny
funny.
thing.
It's funny because I brought that back and, like, I had, like, reposted it and, like, everybody I'm not gonna lie, when I reposted that, like, on my page, like, my Instagram, I know people were messaging me like, "Where'd you find this video? Well, we never seen Alex this way, like, yelling at people."
Yeah,
And it was an old video, so I was like, "It's an old video." I'm like, I was stalking his, I hate the word stalking, but I was just checking out his it just made me laugh, and it was so funny to see a different side of
yeah,
Alex in that, and that
that's
that was
Alex for
that was
sure.
hilarious. That's Alex for sure, yeah, and it's so funny 'cause and then at one point, everybody started reposting the same clip that I posted because of the fact that, like, I kinda, like, brought it back, and,
Yeah,
Alex was like, "This is your fault."
that's funny.
I could not stop laughing. I'm like, "That was the funniest thing I've ever seen." Um, and then so, yeah, what about Roots of Faith? What one did you like to do on that
Roots
one?
of Faith. I already forgot what I've done on there. I would have to look at the videos. I've already forgot, and I just started it too. I started it back in February, I believe, and it's already about to hit 50,000 subscribers. So it's been really cool to see the growth in such a short period.
'Cause you had let's see, you had Jared on, you've
That's a
had
good one.
I forgot what his name was. There's the
Eric,
guy
I like my interview with Eric. That one was really
Eric
good.
was
Yeah,
that one was really good. You got Seraphim on as well, Sips with Sarah. You had a couple of Orthodox priests as well. You got Luigi on there. Despite what people say, I actually very much enjoyed that interview with Luigi. That one was probably my
I did
favorite.
too. Yeah,
Like
that
and
might
like
be my favorite, to be honest. I liked it. I liked sitting down with him, even though we obviously might disagree on some things. I liked meeting him. I liked sitting down with him. I liked how it came out. I think it looked really good. I think it sounded good. I liked what he was saying. He made some pretty interesting points that made me actually think and rethink some of the Catholic positions. It might have been that
Father
one.
Chris was
Yeah.
really good too. That one was really good too. Father Chris was
Yeah. Which one? Father Chris Zuger?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I love Father Chris.
Anything
Yeah.
that
He's
he comes
awesome.
on, I watch it because
But he's
that priest
incredible.
is great.
Yeah. And we're fortunate to see him every Sunday because that's our parish priest. He's retired, but he's one of the priests that are there. As far as like roots of orthodoxy, I always enjoy my time with Father Paul Schubenbach. Father Paul is truly special, and I know he's brought so many people to orthodoxy just from his example. So every time I meet somebody, they tell me that interview you did with Father Paul, like that's the one. Father Paul Schubenbach is something else. He's very incredible. I'm very grateful and honored to know him. I had saw a video that of a Protestant interviewing him. The video is called "A Protestant Visits an Orthodox Church for the First Time," something like that. His name is Matt Whitman. Excuse me, Matt Whitman. He interviewed Father Paul, and it was through that video I saw him that I was like, I need to talk to Father Paul. Like this was before I started Roots of Orthodoxy. I was like, I don't know how, but I just need to meet this man. I need to talk to him. There's something special about him, and I've been fortunate enough now to have met and worked with him think 2 or 3 times now, maybe 2 times, and every single time it's always a joy, and me and him are very alike, like, there's so many things that we share in common, and just hearing how he speaks of the beauty of orthodoxy, that's what makes somebody want to become Orthodox. He's always talking about he likes to share more about the beauty of orthodoxy versus bashing the other faiths, and that because he does that approach, it makes people want to become Orthodox because they're able to see something that is transforming him, that is making him how he is. And yeah, just my time with him, all of the videos I did with him, those are my favorite.
I like the ones that you do with Father John.
Father John Fenton, yeah,
Father
I love
Father
him.
John, I don't know what it is. When I first saw I forgot what video it was that you did with him. It was the first video that I've ever seen. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was like, this father, I'm like, he has something. There's something
Yeah,
special about him. It's cute though, because like I love seeing all these different priests come on and I'm like, man, I'm like some of these guys have such a holiness to them. Like
right.
they just radiate that.
They do.
I was like, I'm like, if I was Jonathan, I would be terrified to talk to them because I'm like, man, I'm like, I can't imagine being with such, like, being surrounded just by the amount of holiness that some of these priests carry. I'm
Yeah.
just like
And you
that's
feel it. You feel it in person. The very first time, it was one of my first few times going to the Orthodox Church. I was still very new to being a conscious Christian. And so Alex would always tell me about miracles and certain things that happen with the saints and stuff like that. And I was still very skeptical of that stuff. I was like, I don't really believe that. Like, well, this saint did this. Like, there's no evidence. Like, what? Why would you believe that this saint did this or he flew this high or he did this? I'm like, I don't really believe that stuff. It wasn't until I met this one Orthodox person at the Orthodox Church that I could feel something radiate. I could feel his aura, to for lack of a better term. I could feel God's grace radiating through him. I could see the light of Christ shining through him. And I didn't believe in this stuff at the time. And I felt it and I saw it. And I was like, there's something happening through this man. And he's tapped into some type of holiness. And it is through his faith that he has become holy. And I'm not going to say his name because if you anybody knows anything about Orthodox priests, they're extremely humble and they don't like to parade themselves. They don't like to show that. They don't like to show their faith like in the sense of like bragging about who they are and what they're extremely humble. And I think it's through his humility that I was able to see that it was incredible. And I was like, wow, like I really feel his presence and not in some fake like wishy-washy way, but I actually did. And I didn't even believe in that stuff and I felt it. So it was an Orthodox Christian that I felt that for the very first time. In the Catholic spaces, there's a lot of good people, but I still have yet to feel that type of holiness in the Catholic world that I felt emanating from that Orthodox person.
you ever thought about doing more like I know you do a lot of interviews with a lot of Orthodox people, but like you ever thought about doing it with some Catholic, not just Catholic creators, but like Catholic priests or bishops or deacons or anything like that, or you just haven't found any or
Yeah, yeah. In fact, that's why I started Roots of Faith was so that I can open up those doors and start speaking to people from different backgrounds. I've had a Coptic Orthodox priest on. I've had a Catholic priest on. I would love to speak more to Catholics. I would love to speak more to people from all walks, from all different backgrounds, and get to learn more. I mean, I've learned so much just even from the Coptic Orthodox priest but definitely, I'm gonna definitely get more Catholic representation on there for sure.
and then my next question would be uh, so obviously you know you said that you work with a lot of different people regarding social media. So are they all Christians or do you also work with some secular people? Do you still work with them or do you used to work with them or how's the
I
relationship with that?
A big focus when I first started creating content, it was strictly secular. I didn't do anything religious. So I built my skills, I guess, working with secular people, YouTubers, certain influencers, certain. I'm a big fan of working with like UFC fighters. I love the UFC. Dana White's my favorite entrepreneur. I love working with UFC fighters. They're they're I think outside of like the religious stuff, that's probably my favorite is working with fighters, boxers, MMA fighters and boxers, or even jujitsu guys. That's always been really cool. I've always been a big fan of martial arts. So I would do a lot of that stuff. In fact, I even had a page called it was it's funny, it's kind of similar to Roots of Orthodoxy, but it's for like martial arts. And I would partner with coaches and have them teach people through the platform. So it's similar to Roots of Orthodoxy, where I have a priest teach people about the faith. I had a coaches talk about and show people how to do techniques and how to train and how to exercise and do things like that. So it did pretty good. Just it was one of those projects that I just did as a passion project. People can look it up. It's called Combat Mastery. And I had that on TikTok for a while. It went from 0 to 100,000 in like a month. Did really well. And now, because I kind of stopped doing it, if you look it up now, it's probably like at whatever 70,000 followers, because the followers go down over time if you're not going to be active on it. So that's something that I was going to do. But yeah, I mean, I would just work with different people, real estate people, dentists, other content creators. I would go to LA. That's where LA is the capital for social media in the whole world. So I would go to LA very frequently and I would work with as many people as I could in a short amount of time and make my money like that. That's what I would do, because the earning potential is just a lot higher in California than where I'm from. I live in New Mexico. A lot of people didn't even know about social media in 2019. They didn't even know they should be on Instagram. So how was I going to get people to want to pay me for content and marketing if they didn't even see the value in it? So in New Mexico, you had to build the value first. In California, you can walk right into it because it was already there. And there's so much demand and not enough supply. People always ask me, is California more competitive than New Mexico? And I'm like, no, it's not more competitive, because the demand is so high that the supply can't match it. Whereas where I live here in New Mexico, it's the opposite. There's too much supply, too many people that want to create content, too many people that are video people, marketing people, photographers, and not enough people want it. So it's very competitive in a scarce market like New Mexico versus California, where it's full of abundance. So I would do that. That's how I would make my money. I would create social media content. I would get the opportunity to work with all these people. And then to this day, I still maintain some of those relationships. So I still do work with some people that are secular. Yeah. Hopefully, Lord willing, I can bring some of those people on to Roots of Faith, some of those people that are Christians, that they just so happen to be Christians. And then maybe I could bring them on to Roots of Faith and have them speak about, their love for Christ.
Is it a large population of people that you still work with? Do you do the same thing like what you do for Alex for Voice of Reason, or are they all different things that you do social media wise for them?
They're they're all different things. Sometimes some people just need me for like a one-off project. They're just like, "Hey, I'm doing this event. Can you come shoot it? Can you come help me with marketing for my business? Can you help me? Can you manage my social media?" So I do it for other people, but they're local people or businesses, restaurants. I do it for restaurants. So there's not anything like crazy or anything like that. Some people are bigger names that I've worked with, that I've done like consultations, but for the most part, because I've kind of tapered my roster, I guess you can call it, I've kind of tapered it down to not work with so many people, and I just work with a few select people now, and I focus on that because I'm able to provide more value if I go deep versus go wide, and trying to help all kinds of people. So I've kind of narrowed it down, and I'm slowly just kind of making my exit. So I'm not taking on any more work. I'm just making my way out. I'm just kind of laying low. I'm just kind of being quiet on that side. And then I'm slowly just gonna, I can already go full time doing content. I can already do that. But I have a lot of good relationships with the businesses that I work with, and I have a lot of value. There's a mutual exchange of value there with those businesses. So I keep them there. But it is slowing me down a lot. And especially because I'm traveling 1 to 2 times per month, that it's getting harder to do that. So I'm slowly just kind of moving them in one direction so I can just pursue the content stuff and just do that full time.
And then my next one would be, how do you decide what to post and when to post it? And are there videos that haven't made the cut for certain channels?
How do I know when to post? What to
Yeah, like
post
how
and when to
like
post?
yeah. So like what to post and when not to post, because I'm assuming obviously with filming, certain things, for example, for Alex's channel, for your channels, for Root of Orthodoxy and Roots of Faith, I'm assuming there's videos that maybe hasn't made the cut, or maybe you're like, I'm not gonna post it.
Yeah,
So like,
there's a
how do you
lot.
decide on how do you decide this is gonna go out there, this one isn't gonna go out there?
It's funny because there's always something you were telling me just before we started, that something always goes wrong, if you don't pray or whatever. There are times where people ask Alex to speak on controversial issues. And I tell him, I'm like, hey bro, I don't think you should speak on this. I said, I know for a fact it's not going to be received well. I don't think we should post this. And we end up filming it anyway. And then one time he was going to speak on something very controversial. And right when we started filming, he got attacked by the hiccups. And he got attacked by the hiccups for an hour straight, 1 hour straight. He kept hiccuping and we recorded it. We recorded it. We have the whole thing. And I told him, I'm like, bro, that's going to be so hard for me to edit. I was like, let's not put it, let's use that as a sign that we should not put this out. Like I kept telling you, like, we should not talk about this. Let's not put it out. And I feel like it was God looking out for us that we never put that out. There's other things that have come up like that where we record something controversial and something happens to the footage or something like that. There's definitely a lot of stuff that hasn't got put out and it probably will never get put out. But we don't really have, because I'm so busy, I don't really have a method to my madness. Like there's no strategy. It's just posting. Like it's just create content and post it. Like a lot of people ask me for strategies and stuff. I don't really have a strategy. I just post and just make sure you have a decent thumbnail, decent title, and I just put it out there and it just, but as far as when to post, I'm not a big I'm not a big fan in like having like strict schedule. I'm not a schedule type of person. I'm a very hardcore like let's work type of person and let's take massive action type of person. So what I mean by that is like people always ask me like what's the secret sauce? Like what's the secret formula? How long should my video be? Should it be 5 minutes? Should it be I heard the sweet spot is 12 minutes. A 12-minute YouTube video is a sweet spot. And I said there is no such thing as a sweet spot. If you have a 3-hour video and it's good, I want to watch it. The secret is to produce good content. That's the secret. Do good work. That's it. Don't I will watch a good 5-minute video and I will watch a good 3-hour video. It doesn't matter the length. Those are variables that don't matter as much. Make sure that the core essence of your content is good and everything else is secondary. Once you get more established, you can focus on. I realize that my content doesn't do so good when I post on Sunday. Let me do Monday. Let me do 11 a.m. Let me do my videos suck when I post at 6 p.m. All of that stuff is secondary. Is the video good is first and foremost. Do you have something compelling to say? Do you have a way that grabs the attention of your audience? That's really what it comes down to. Is there a storytelling element to your video? Is there a way that you're able to deliver on value? That's the number one thing is how do you deliver on value in your video? And value can look different ways. It could be entertainment. It could be educational. Whatever it is, make sure that you're delivering on value and people will want to watch the content and people will feel a connection to you. There's many ways to go viral. Like you can go outside, record yourself taking a dump on the sidewalk and go viral. That doesn't matter. No one's going to feel a connection to you and you're not establishing personal brand by doing that. Nobody cares about you when you do that. But when you consistently provide value over a prolonged period of time, now you're building brand and now you're building a relationship with your audience. So it's kind of like long term versus short term. People that take shortcuts in life, that money doesn't last. Like people that made their fortunes in a short amount of time, that money doesn't last versus a person that built their wealth brick by brick by doing the right things every single day. That's what I'm looking for when I create content. That's my philosophy. I try not to focus too much on the variables. Like had videos where I post it on TikTok late at night, you know, 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m., which is a time you're not supposed to post or whatever. I wake up, the video's at 250,000, 500,000 views. So it's not about those things. Sometimes people focus a lot on the wrong things. They focus on what's a good analogy?
They focus on the exterior, not the
On the exterior.
quality of the.
They decorate the exterior, but the inside is just garbage. It sucks. They don't have a good product. Like imagine somebody that's trying to sell a product and they haven't done the due diligence of creating a good product first. The marketing will come after. Like focus on building a good product that fills a need in the market that is of value that people actually want or need. That's first. That's like a prerequisite. And then the marketing will come. The marketing is the other half of it. It's like, okay, you built a good product. Now, how do we get people to know about the product? That's really what it is. And that's how people should think about their content. don't do gimmicky things because you want to get attention. Like that's not my philosophy. You can listen to another guru that's going to tell you to do that. That's fine. But the success that I've seen with people that I've worked with, it's by doing it correctly the first time and not trying to take shortcuts and not trying to be like, oh, let's respond to this because it's trending, or let's do this because it's trending, or trying to take shortcuts on things that really don't matter. And it's just kind of like, it's not really about going deep. It's just about going wide.
And my next one is, do you ever butt heads with posting video with somebody? So for example, for like I know I'm gonna keep using Alex as an example because he's the one that you work with the most, I feel like. But like, do you guys ever butt heads like where he's like, it's like I don't really like it, I really we should post it, and you're like, no, we definitely should.
Yeah. Yeah. I always ignore him. He's like, I don't like how I looked in this video. I'm like, I don't care. Post. Yeah. Cause well, that's part of the reason too, is like we're our own worst critic. So you need somebody there that's going to tell you, bro, you look good. Like nobody noticed that this was in the frame, or nobody noticed that your hair or whatever. Like he might be like, oh, I didn't like how my hair looked in this one. I'm like, dude, not a single person knows or cares. Like, let's post it. It's a good video. You talked about this. It's going to change somebody's life because you said this in the video. So I don't really care. I don't really let him like say too much on that. I'm just like, let's just post it. And it ends up, it's funny because like, it's funny, we'll record something and he'll be like, man, I don't know how I feel about that video. I think that was my worst video I've ever done. Like I wasn't feeling what I was saying. And I was like, dude, trust me, let's just post it. We post it. And then if you read the comments, it's like, this is the best video you've ever made. It's my favorite video of all time. Like you really went above and beyond in this video. And I'm like, dude, like sometimes we just need to get out of our own heads. And it's good that we can hold each other accountable. He might see something that I don't, and I might see something that he doesn't. So we have a good dynamic right now, and we'd actually never butt heads. He's such a he's very humble. He he's willing to listen. He's willing to work. I never have to like tell him something, or
So
he never has to
he's
tell me
never annoyed
something.
you.
Like
And they're asking you the same question that I asked him. I'll tell you what his response was when I asked him if you ever annoyed him due to your like personal just relationship that you guys have. But I want to hear your response. Does he ever annoy you in
does he
general?
ever annoy me? That's a good question. That's a good question. Okay, the only time he annoys me that he's gonna know what I'm talking about is when we share a hotel room together and we're trying to go to sleep, and he's like blasting a video like right when we're trying to go to sleep. He'll like be watching like Catholic Answers or something like at 10:30 at night, and we're supposed to go to sleep and be up early like at 5 in the morning. That's the only time I get a little annoyed, but no, he doesn't really annoy me.
You know what's funny is that he in his video that I did with him, I actually asked him that same question if you ever annoyed him, and he's like, he's never annoyed me. He's like, not at all. He's like, but I will say this, I am almost 100% sure I have annoyed him. He's like, I have to. He's like, because there's some things that I do it on purpose, just because I know how he'll react to it. And he's like, but he actually spoke really good things about me. He's like, but he's a saint. He's like, he's so patient. He's never yelled
He's
at me.
too
He never
humble.
told me to like shut up and like do anything.
Yeah, we don't.
Which is what surprised me. Yeah, because most people would fight with their producers or people that work with them.
Yeah, no. Thankfully, he's been very patient throughout the whole process. Like even when things were slow, he's always been very humble and very like, if I say something like, "Hey man, I have an idea," he never has second thoughts. Like he just does it. Same thing with him. If he comes to me with an idea, like I look at it and see like, okay, is this a good idea? And then when we just go and we make it happen. We don't really fight, but um, you never know. But as of right now, we've never fought.
Yeah, he told me the exact same thing. At least that aligns too, you know. But he did say that like he's like he never annoys me, and he's like, but I know I must annoy him. And I was like, probably, but and I love that, and we all love seeing your guys' relationship together, especially when you guys do like small videos. Like it's always good to see it, and I see a lot of positive reviews coming in of your guys' friendships, and a lot of people are like, man, like you can tell. And it's funny because I see that and I'm like, you can tell the amount of love that they have for each other, and the amount of respect they have for each other. And, I know Alex talks very, very highly of you and hypes you up. And Yeah.
Yeah, we've literally
Even when
known
you're
each
not
other
there.
since kindergarten.
That's crazy.
The other
And you
day we
guys
went
never
back
fought?
No. The other day we went back to our elementary school and we were just reminiscing on everything. He'd be like, "Remember when you used to bully me right here? Remember when you did this to me right here?" Like it was awesome. Like it was cool to go back to the where it all started and it was cool. Yeah, I'm very grateful for our friendship.
Is there anybody that you don't have to say any names, but has there been anybody that maybe you invited on either your channel or his channel that you just didn't really click with?
Not yet. That hasn't happened yet, so I'm hoping it doesn't happen soon. I'm a very like quiet person. I'm very awkward, so like if if I don't click with somebody, it's gonna be hard if I make a video with somebody that is like we don't click or whatever. So far, I'm very pleased with who I've had on all channels. Like there's nobody I'm like I didn't like this person or they were weird with me or it was hard to get them to talk. Like I haven't had to deal with that yet and I'm hoping I can keep that up. Like everyone so far has been pretty cool. I'm not like a social butterfly. I don't talk to people. I don't like being out in public. I don't like it's funny, I don't like being at events, even though we're always at events. I'm very like, I just like to be by myself and I like just reading books and just kind of, or praying or just being by myself or like going to the church or something or being with my family or just being with Alex. So I don't like being in large crowds or groups. And so if there was a time where I'm sitting down with somebody, then we don't click, it's going to be rough. But so far, thankfully, that hasn't happened.
And then I would say so I guess my next one is do you regret not doing Voice of Reason as a duo?
As a what?
As a duo.
As
Do
a
you
duo?
regret
No.
yeah, like do you regret not being because seeing the success that you've seen that Voice of Reason has had over, over a certain period of time, do you regret not being like, "Man, I should have went on camera with him or something," and
No, no, that's his thing for sure. He's a superstar, and I don't wanna I stay in my lane, and I know where I do the best work is behind the scenes, and I know he does the best work being on camera. Like, I have roots of faith, but that's different. Like, I just wanted to have conversations with people and kinda just do a fun podcast, something I could do on my downtime and put out content, and so far people like the content, so I just continue posting it. But as far as even then, I don't even like to put myself out there that much. So I don't regret that at all. I think it's good that he was the person on screen at all times.
and then, how does it been, getting to meet some of the supporters that watch either your channel or watch his channel? Have you met some nice people? Have you been gotten some nice gifts? Or like what are some of your favorite ones or favorite places that you've gone?
You guys gave us the Voice of Reason shirts and the cigars. Yeah, that's definitely been a highlight. It's been overwhelmingly positive. We've not had a single negative experience. I've not had a single negative experience. I hope it stays like that at the Orthodox Church or the Catholic Church. I've I've only had one person say, "Hey, I used to not like you, and now I like you." So that's positive. um, but for the most part, thank God, everything has been good. Everything, God has been so good to us. We've been so blessed. Our supporters are very awesome and we're here to serve in as many ways as possible. If anybody needs anything from us, we're always here to serve, and we're always trying to give back in any way that we possibly can. So we're hoping to continue to do that, continue to build relationships, continue to meet people, continue to help people, continue to promote good people. So hopefully we can keep this trend and just kind of keep it, in a positive direction.
And then the last several questions.
Mhm.
So what is the biggest lesson that the Lord has taught you over the years, and what are you currently learning now?
The biggest lesson that the Lord has taught me over the years is there's so many lessons. Probably recently is to always run back to him even after you fall. Cause we're not perfect. Alex and I were both sinners, just like everyone else. And just to run back to him every time that we do fall. Like every time that we sin, run back to him in confession, run back to him in prayer, ask for his forgiveness, seek his mercy. That's probably the biggest thing. And it's the work of the evil one to make you despair. It's the work of the evil one to make you say, look what you did. God doesn't want you. God doesn't love you. Don't. like he makes you feel embarrassed to go back to him in prayer because of what you did. And we talk about this recently on an episode that hasn't come out yet, but I quoted Fulton Sheen. He has this beautiful quote where he says, "Before the sin, Satan convinces you that it is of no consequence. After the sin, he convinces you that it is unforgivable." And that's really what Satan does is he tempts you with that sin and he says, "It's not really a big deal. You know, come on, you can do it. God will forgive you." And then after you do the sin, you feel like dirty, you feel in the dirt, and he tells you, "Look at you, you're disgusting. God doesn't want you. God doesn't want you to come back to him. You know, don't even go to confession. You're not worthy of going to the church. You're not worthy of talking to people or of going back to him in prayer." So that's probably the biggest lesson is that I've learned that God loves us in ways that we don't understand. And I think back to the Gospel of Luke, the parable of the prodigal son. That's what sticks out to me the most when I think about how God wants us and how we relate to him and how when we turn back to him in true repentance, that's when he's there and he's waiting for us. Not only is he waiting for us, he runs to us like the father does in the parable. And he's ready to welcome us and offer us. And he wants us to be there and to share in his glory and to share in his joy. So if anything, that's what sticks out to me the most of what I've learned on this journey so far.
And then what are some of your favorite things in the Orthodox faith and some of your favorite things in the Catholic faith?
That's a really good question.
And I'll
My
put it two
favorite,
and two because of your channels. So, you know.
yeah, my favorite aspect of the Orthodox faith is the spirituality, the focus on the mystical. I always tell people that, or even the focus on the church being a hospital for sinners. You know, it was actually St. John Chrysostom here that I don't know if he's in focus, but it was him that said that phrase, the church is a hospital for sinners and not a courtroom. And it's really that emphasis that you really feel at the Orthodox Church. Another thing that I like about the Orthodox Church, there are many things that I like about the Orthodox Church, and that's why I think it's worth taking a second consideration. I love the emphasis on the lives of the saints. That's a big focus in the Orthodox Church. Every single thing is done with the patristic witness in mind, with the fathers, the holy fathers at the forefront. The liturgical calendar is full of saints. Every single homily that you hear at the Orthodox Church is going to have many saints imbued into the message. That's what I really love that. There's an encouragement to read the Synaxarion, the lives of the saints. There's an encouragement for the lay people to learn as much as they can about the saints, to love their patron saints, to celebrate their saints' day. The Catholic Church has this as well, but I think it's lost a lot of this over time with a lot of the modernism that has stepped into the church. I mean, it's just a fact. It's not a criticism, but it's an observation. When I go to the church, the Novus Ordo, I don't hear about any saint. I don't hear anyone. Sometimes I'll hear about St. Thomas Aquinas. Sometimes I'll hear about St. Augustine, very minimally, but I do not hear about the stories of the saints or, you know, it's not as big of an emphasis. And that's a broad generalization. Somebody might disagree and say, we hear about saints all the time and they're all over our walls. And, you know, that's not been my experience, but if that's been somebody else's experience, fair enough. And was something I like about the Catholic faith, was that the other question? What I like about
Yes.
the Catholic faith is the clarity that it gives you. I think that's the advantage that it has over orthodoxy is that you have more clarity in the Catholic faith of understanding what it is that the Catholic Church teaches and what you need to do to be in good standing as a Catholic. And if there's a question, the Catholic Church has already answered it. And it's answered it on a universal level in a way that it is binding for the faithful. For the most part. For the most part, it has. And if it hasn't, it has a mechanism in which it can do this in the future. So I admire that part of it, the intellectual side of it. It makes sense to me. I think that's the advantage that it has over Eastern Orthodoxy. And that's what makes the two kind of complicated. The East kind of focuses more on the mystical. It focuses more on the what is called apophatic theology, talking about what God is not versus defining things, like how in the West, everything is defined. Everything has they try to get as close as possible to that limit of understanding something, transubstantiation. God, how do we understand God, absolute divine simplicity. It tries to get as close as possible to understanding something and expressing it. The East is not so much concerned with defining those things and expressing those things. It's very much concerned with the experience of God. And going back to like the apophatic theology, what that means is talking about what God is not. So, for example, saying that God is inconceivable, incomprehensible, ineffable, invincible. It's all of these words about what he's not. It speaks about him in the it has a focus on these things. Sure, it has other ways of talking about it, but I really admire that a lot. I like focusing on the mystery and not having to know all of the answers. I really appreciate that a lot about the Orthodox Church. And sorry for rambling. I keep going off on different tangents, but I really enjoy the prayers as well. I don't know if it's focusing. This is my favorite prayer book right here. It's by St. Tikhon's Monastery Press. Anyone can buy it for $25. You can order it from stmpress.com. This is my favorite prayer book. In it, you're going to find a lot of beautiful Eastern prayers, and anyone could pray this. A Catholic can buy this if they want to. Orthodox, of course, they read this. This is a very beautiful prayer book. It has all of these incredible prayers from the Eastern saints, and you're going to get Saint Basil the Great. You're going to get Saint John Chrysostom, and this is what I use for my daily prayers. And this has allowed me to be closer in my spiritual life because it gives you something to follow. It gives you these guidelines to follow every single day. Anybody who's struggling in their spiritual life, I highly recommend getting a prayer book. I recommend this specific prayer book, but I'm sure any prayer book would work. But this one is going to help you get more structured with your prayers. And then also, if you're just wanting to see a little bit of the beauty and the richness and the humility in repentance of the East, I highly recommend this one, A Spiritual Psalter by St. Ephrem the Syrian. In it, you're going to find a lot of beautiful reflections and contemplations of the faith, how to live, how to come to God in true repentance, how to beseech the Lord, how to seek, uh, the intercession of the saints, how to really humble yourself and draw closer to the Lord. I mean, these two right here are a staple for me. And then, of course, doing the Jesus prayer. Let me get my rope. I have it right here. Doing the Jesus prayer is actually a very beautiful gift to be able to do, to be able to pray. It looks like a rosary, but at each knot, you're going to say I almost dropped my water. Sorry. You're going to say the Jesus prayer. You say, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And you're going to go through all of these knots right here. You can go through the whole rope, or you could just kind of pick it up and pray it just whenever you have some downtime. This is very, very helpful to keep Christ at the forefront throughout your day. St. Paul calls us to pray unceasingly, and this helps facilitate that. This helps keep God at the forefront at all times. And, when you're anxious, or when you're feeling like you're being tempted, or when you're afraid, or even when you're just chilling, or when you're in the car, it's often been called a sword because it's your weapon. It's a spiritual weapon. And this is really what has helped me a lot. And it's very important to keep with you. And of course, you don't need the prayer rope to do the prayer, but it helps you. You might have it in your pocket, but as you're going throughout the day, you pull it out and you're like, oh, shoot, I have this in my pocket. Let me just pray it. It's a good way to remind you to always stay close to God. So those would be like my favorite things to say about the Orthodox Church. There's been so much, even just observing as an outsider, I've learned so much, and it's already transformed me in ways that I'm very grateful.
And then maybe just for the last question, what advice will you give to somebody that maybe wants to pursue social media? Whether it's content creating or whether it's working in social media as a manager.
It's the same advice that I give everyone always. Um, I live by this philosophy. It's called, or I like to say, perfection is the impediment to progress. So the more that you want something to be perfect, the less action you're going to take. So the more you're fixated on getting things right, the less output you're going to have. And that's the problem with anyone that's trying to get into social media, is they're waiting for that right moment when they can finally start. They're waiting until they buy the camera. They're waiting until they can get this mic. They're waiting until they can get the headphones. They're waiting until they get in shape. They're waiting until they get a haircut. They're waiting until their acne clears up or whatever. And that mindset is going to hold you back. I'm a big proponent of just taking massive action and not caring. Don't care so much about the smaller details. Care about the value that you're going to provide. If you're somebody that's like, I'm very good at talking about X, or I really want to do content. I know my stuff about this subject. You're withholding your gifts because you're being selfish. That's really what it comes down to. You're being selfish by not sharing those gifts with the world. God gave you those talents. Share those with the world. And you're concerned about the external things. You're concerned about the superficial things. Like, you don't need the camera. You can start with your phone. Everyone has a phone. The phone has good enough quality. You can start with that. So many people that I know, that I follow, create content just with the phone, and they're bigger than both Alex and my pages. You can look at the Lord's Giant. You can look at True Christian Ministry. You can look at all these pages that just do content with the phone, not produced at all, and they're killing it because they didn't wait and they just take action. They get an idea and they're just like, boom, I'm going to do it. That's the biggest thing I learned when I started doing business is not to wait, not to wait till the circumstances are right. You know, if you wait till the circumstances are right, you're going to get very little done. And while you're waiting, someone else is taking action. So, and then that creates frustration and resentment inside your heart, and that's a sin. Now you're putting yourself in a position of sin because you're like, man, that guy, I had that idea to do that podcast. I had that idea to get on TikTok and talk about the saints. I had that idea. And now you're creating this resentment and you're creating envy. Now you're being envious of somebody else because the envy is started because you know that you're capable of doing those things. You know that deep down in your mind and in your heart, you know you're capable. And when that's being put in front of your face, it hurts. It hurts because you're like, that could have been me if I would have just locked in and got focused." So that would be my main thing is just start where you are, be resourceful, use the people around you. You know, we can only do so much as a person. Use the people around you. Ask for help. Be humble. That's what the spiritual life is about, right? Being humble. Well, be humble in your business life too. Tell somebody, "Hey, I don't know how to do this. Could you help me?" Or, "Hey, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Can you check this for me?" You know, that mindset is going to get you a lot further along than thinking that you have to figure it all by yourself.
Ooh, I like that advice. Anyways, guys, so I think that will conclude for this episode. So just for anybody out there, go ahead and just promote your social medias for anybody that wants to come and follow you and check you out. Because I know you're
Yeah,
everywhere right now.
you guys can follow me at Roots of Faith podcast on Instagram, Roots of Faith on YouTube, Roots of Orthodoxy on YouTube, Roots of Orthodoxy on TikTok and Instagram. It's the same stuff. And then Voice of Reason, just follow Voice of Reason too. We're a team. So if you follow him, you're helping me too, you know? So yeah, that and if you guys ever want to reach me, get a hold of me, you could just DM me. My personal account, I'm a lot more accessible on my personal account if you message me at Jelubi, Jelubi. That's my Instagram. But you can message me at Roots of Orthodoxy. It's just harder for me to see it, or Roots of Faith. But Jelubi is probably you'll probably get a response from me if you message me on there.
All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening, so much for watching. Please go ahead and check out his stuff. Check out his social media. He does really good work, honestly. It doesn't matter if you're Orthodox or Catholic. Like, trust me, there's something that you're going to learn from what he's doing. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming on
Thanks
here
for
and
having me.
taking the time to do this. This really
Of
means a lot.
course.
Everybody knows
Yeah.
that I've been excited to do this. So
I hope I didn't
I'm,
disappoint.
oh, you definitely did it. You definitely did. Everybody better be nice in the comments.
I know.
Just kidding. But anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. And on to the next episode. Just make sure to keep praying for us and keep praying for him, especially, and him and Alex and what they're doing. For those who aren't in social media, it's not that easy. They just make it look easy, but it really isn't. So just keep us in your prayers. And thank you guys so much for watching. Until the next time.